Did the Cubs' hiring of Craig Counsell send the Milwaukee Brewers into a full-on rebuild? Plus, what do the Cubs currently have on their roster, and what are their biggest needs in free agency and trade season? We've got a packed Monday show for you. Come on!
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cubs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Sam Olber. Please support the show by following on your preferred audio platform, and you can watch, subscribe, and leave a comment on YouTube. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are lifelong fans taking our passion into a discussion with you on all things Cubs. Today's Monday episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's Jase medical.com. Welcome in, folks. Happy Monday to you. I hope it is a pleasant day. The week before Thanksgiving week, always an easier week to get through, knowing that hopefully you have some time off coming up around the corner. We have a fun show for you today. I have a fun show for you today. Matt is coming back from Arizona. He will be back on Tuesday. I want to talk about, I think this is a good time for me and us to talk about the current Cubs situation, just a very literal episode. So we all are on the same page of what do the Cubs currently have? What do we know going into the 2024 season? What do we absolutely know that is locked in and that they have? And then where are the needs for improvement? Now, I want to preface by saying when I do this exercise, I'm going to go through position by position, and then I'm going to talk about, okay, this is good, check. This isn't good. What are some possible fillers here? Because there's so many offseason hypotheticals and things the Cubs could do. I want to preface what I'm going to say is I'm going to stay away from the bullpen because the bullpen is tricky. You know, that could be filled internally. I don't know what their plan is on that. That's more of I always look at when I think about bullpens in 2023 and heading into 2024, I feel like bullpens are more of an organizational tool than a player tool. How do you develop your bullpen? How do you get the right players? So I think making predictions and talking about that would be, it just wouldn't make any sense. So I'm just going to stick to the starting rotation and position players. So let's go around the horn, knowing what we have going into 2024 that's not going to be addressed. Okay. So let's start with position players. Catcher, that is not something that is going to be addressed. It's going to be Yan Gomes and most likely Miguel Amaya. That's going to be your catching situation if everybody is healthy in 2024. Okay. Shortstop, Dansby Swanson. That is checked. That is not something that's going to be addressed. Nico Horner at second base, done. Ian Happ, most likely at left field. Seiya Suzuki, most likely at right field. Now, maybe one of those guys, maybe Suzuki ends up DHing a little bit, depending on when we talk about these future hypotheticals, but those guys are locked in. We can't assume that they're re-signing Bellinger. So position player wise, that leaves a hole at center field that you would hope that they re-sign Bellinger for. Maybe that's PCA. Maybe it's something that Matt mentioned the other day, like a diet soda option of Harrison Bader, right? Third base is open. First base is open. And then that DH spot is open. Now, I understand people are at home are probably saying, well, Sam, what about Christopher Morel? Look, I'm just, the point of this exercise is to see where we 1,000% know, these guys are going to be there. I can't sit here and say that Christopher Morel 100% is going to be the opening day DH next year or for first base. It's definitely a possibility, but I'm just saying where the locks are, right? The locks are in left field. The locks are in right field. The locks are at shortstop, catcher, and second base. The room for growth, the room for free agency or trades is at the corner spots, center field to re-sign Bellinger, and then, of course, the extra bat at DH, okay? Pitching-wise, starting-wise, just 3 locks, right? Justin Steele, Jamison Tyone, Kyle Hendricks. Now, The Cubs may add 2 starters. They may add 3. They may only add 1. Maybe Jordan Wicks comes in. Maybe he's, part of the starting 5. Who knows? Maybe Cade Horton takes a leap, and by May, he's part of the starting 5. I'm just talking locks, right? I'm just talking, what do we know now about the 2024 Cubs before we head into free agency trade? So that's basically 5 major positions. We know where that's going to be. And we have 3 starting pitchers, right? The rest is up to interpretation and fun and hypotheticals, right? So let's talk about options at each, okay? Let's talk about options at each. I've been hearing a lot of names and different things, and there's so many different ways the Cubs can go. I said on multiple shows last week that I think it would be a failure of an offseason if the Cubs didn't get at least one of the following names, right? And when I say at least, it's probably only going to be one, but because they're going to be big contracts. But that's Shohei Ohtani in free agency, right? Yamamoto in free agency, trading for Juan Soto, or trading, and this is the lesser one, they would have to probably have a really big move in addition to this, trading for Pete Alonso, right? And that's not including the Cody Bellinger situation. So I put out a poll question last week on Twitter or X, whatever it's called. I said, hey, what's your biggest priority in the offseason if you're a Cubs fan? And most people said a big bat, then a big arm, and then it was Bellinger. But there was a large contingent of people that were saying, hey, they got to re-sign Bellinger. And I just think that one, I want Cody Bellinger back. But to me, is it a priority? The point of this exercise is the Cubs still have a lot of holes on their roster, and whatever player they decide to go get, whatever big name they decide to go get, it's going to be filled from there. So let's just use a hypothetical example. Let's say the Cubs do not re-sign Cody Bellinger. But the reason they do not re-sign Cody Bellinger is because they go get Shohei Ohtani on a 10-year, $490 million deal. I'm just spitting out numbers. I have no idea. Okay. So they don't get Shohei Ohtani, or they don't get Cody Bellinger, but they get Shohei Ohtani. From then on, what constitutes a successful offseason? I ask you, I'm just asking rhetorical questions at this point. You could comment below. Would that be enough right there? Or would they have to go out? They still would have to get a pitcher, right? So what if they go get Shohei Ohtani and a lesser free agent starting pitcher, right? Then the holes are still there. The holes are still there. You're still missing center field. You're still missing third base, and you're still missing first base. So what do you do, right? And that's going to be the question, right? If the Cubs go out and get Shohei Ohtani, and then let's say Harrison Bader's the filler in center field, or maybe it's PCA, and then they fill the corner infield spots with maybe a Justin Turner or a Chris Morel. Maybe it's internal. Maybe it's Mastro/Madrigal. And then they go out and let's say this is the other big one. They go out and they sign Rhys Hoskins because Rhys Hoskins has been really connected to the Cubs lately because he's a Scott Boras client. Scott Boras likes those prove-it deals. He just had tons of success with the Cubs on a prove-it deal with Cody Bellinger, right? That 1-year deal, maybe a player option for year 2 for a little more security. You go have a big year, you enter free agency off a big year and get paid. So the question I ask our phenomenal listeners is to me, what constitutes a good offseason for you? What is a success, right? So in this scenario, Shohei Ohtani, Rhys Hoskins, a pitcher, and then maybe a lower level center fielder. I can't argue with that. That'd be awesome, right? That would be good enough. Even though you wouldn't be bringing Cody Bellinger back, I feel like your team would be better, right? Even using Juan Soto as an example. What if you go Juan Soto, extend him, right? I think Jordan Montgomery would probably be a little bit too pricey at that point, but let's just, for the sake of the hypothetical fun here, Juan Soto, Jordan Montgomery, and then a 1-year deal to Rhys Hoskins. And those are the 3 moves you make off season, right? It's not too different than last offseason. The big contract with Dansby Swanson. Then you fill Bellinger on a 1-year deal and you go get Jameson Taillon, the pitcher. It would be the next level up from that. Obviously, Soto's going to cost more than Bellinger, et cetera, et cetera. But if that's the offseason, if it's just those 3 guys, Soto, Montgomery, Hoskins, and then you fill the rest internally. Is that a success? I think so. Would it be disappointing to not have Cody Bellinger? Of course it would. But if you're running out a team where you just upgraded first base with Rhys Hoskins, you're playing Soto now in right field, and Suzuki's DHing and they're switching off. You have center field. Maybe it's like a Harrison Bader. Maybe it's just PCA. Let's just say PCA for the sake of it. So you got Ian Happ in left, PCA in center, Juan Soto in right, Seiya Suzuki at DH. Around the horn, it's either Morel or Madrigal at third, Dansby, Nico, Hoskins, Gomes. And then your starting rotation is Steele, Montgomery, Hendricks, Tyone, and then maybe Wicks. Is that good enough? It's just very interesting to think about what would be good enough. To me, that would be a home run off season. I think if you went into that last season and you're an 83-win team and you made those additions with the subtractions you had, logistically, you should jump up 5, 6, 7 wins. Then you add in that you have a phenomenal new manager that's great on the margins. That's probably going to give you another 5, 6, 7 wins. It would not be blasphemous to think that that's a 95-win team right there. But that's my opinion. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. I'm curious to hear what Matt thinks. What constitutes a really solid offseason for the Chicago Cubs that's realistic, where you go into the season thinking we can be, and Scott Boras talked about this, we could be World Series contenders, not just division winners? Because, if the Cubs, let's say the Cubs just re-sign Bellinger, they don't land any of the big fishes, but they do get Rhys Hoskins and a lower level pitcher. I still think they might be favorites in the Central, but do you really feel like they could win a World Series? I don't know. The counterpoint to that is the Diamondbacks won 84 games and they came within 3 games of winning the World Series. It's just fun food for thought thinking about, what is a good offseason? What are you looking for? For me, a good offseason would be adding one of the names that I mentioned, and then filling out the rest of the holes, if so. And I think Matt did an awesome job. He was really quick on the Rhys Hoskins thing. That's starting to gain steam. Bleacher Nation was talking about that. If you can add him on a 1-year filler and take care of first base, then go get one of the big fishes, you'll be in really good shape. But, it's just interesting. I'm very interested to hear what all of you guys think. Like, what is an ideal offseason that's realistic? Of course, you can't say, well, sign Ohtani, trade for Soto, and get Yamamoto. That's not realistic, right? But is it realistic to get Soto, Hoskins, and a good pitcher? Or Ohtani, Hoskins, and a good pitcher? Is that realistic? And if that's realistic, would that be ideal? You tell me. I think it's really interesting to think about. But I think one really cool thing that the Cubs have going for them is that no matter what they do this offseason, you're going to feel a lot better about a certain part of the game because of the manager they hired. And the Milwaukee Brewers are starting to make it a little bit more public that because of that and some other contract situations, they could be headed for a rebuild. We're going to talk about that next. But first, this episode is brought to you by Jace. We spend a lot of time talking together, you and I. We get fired up together on wins and losses, who starts and who sits. I'm thankful for that connection we have. And today I want our chat to be a little bit more personal. Whether you're on extended travel, bracing for a major weather event, or limited by yet another supply shortage, you are covered. Thanks to our partners at Jace Medical, life-saving antibiotics and a long list of daily medications can be ordered in a 1-year supply. Even ED generics for Cialis and Viagra prescriptions. Go online right now at jacemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jace, quote, "I am thankful for this service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills in half to have it. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year supply. I also ordered an antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone," end quote. If you or someone you love would get some peace of mind by having a year's supply of any daily medication, go to jacemedical.com, see if it's offered for you. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. We are back here on Locked On Cubs, and I always think it's interesting in sports. How do you build your team? Do you build your team from a lens of it's only us, we have to control what we can control, and we don't worry about other teams? Or do you build your team with a thought about the Milwaukee Brewers, a thought about the St. Louis Cardinals, and are they in your mind? Because I think it's very appropriate on this show to talk about the Milwaukee Brewers and them possibly be heading for a rebuild when they are the team that won 90 plus games and won the division last year. And that's exactly what's happening, because that impacts the Cubs. It impacts how they do things. It makes their window opened even higher. They feel even like they have more of a chance. I mean, if the Brewers aren't a contender next year, now you're really talking about what? Are the Pirates ready yet? I don't think so. The Reds for sure are a couple pitchers away from being a problem. And the Cardinals are going to be a thorn. They're going to be better than they were last year. But if the Brewers are out, it really changes not only the complexion of the division, but really the National League. It's just one less contender to worry about. And Ken Rosenthal and Bleacher Report and a lot of other major outlets are now starting to trend in the direction that the Brewers have everybody available, right? And I'm not sure the Craig Counsell situation is what absolutely started that. They could have been headed for that either way. Maybe Craig Counsell knew they were headed for that, and that was one of the reasons that he walked out the door. I have no idea. But their current situation is a little bit bleak, right? Brandon Woodruff hits free agency soon. Corbin Burns, they've had issues there. He's a very tradable guy, right? The only really major pieces they have under contract are Yelich and Contreras, and everybody else could be bought. And now they lost the glue. They lost the guy that was really kind of holding that thing together with Band-Aids, and Craig Counsell that was finding ways to maximize wins in many ways. And it could be a rebuild, right? That's the name of the game when you're a small market team. You can't afford to re-sign these guys. And look, I'll never count the Brewers out. I think even despite Counsell or without Counsell, they obviously have a very good organization and they know how to develop pitching, especially. So who knows? They still might be a thorn whether they have big names on their team or not. But if this team does lose Woodruff and or Burns and they have a sell-off, that is a really big thing for the Chicago Cubs. And if even 5% of that was contributed to because the Cubs decided to go get Craig Counsell and he wanted to come here, it makes that move even more of an obvious home run, right? I mean, if you don't have to worry about the Milwaukee Brewers, I mean, they've been a thorn in our side here since 2018. Every single year they've beat us. They've won divisions. They've been the best team in the division since 2018. And that being done is a really big end of a chapter. And, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but around the industry, a lot of people are expecting it to. So that's something to keep an eye on. And another, list of long positives that are, happening right now for the Cubs in this offseason. Speaking of a lot of positives, there was some really good news on the farm. And we talk about that coming up next. We are back here on Locked On Cubs, and the Cubs got some good news this weekend. One of their top prospects, James Triantos, was named the Arizona Fall League Offensive Player of the Year. He played 22 games. He hit a whopping 417, 495, 679. Good for a Barry Bonds-like 1.174 OPS, 3 home runs. 5 triples, 3 doubles, just an explosive fall for one of the Cubs' top offensive prospects. And again, guys, whether James Triantos is a future Cub star or he's a future piece in a major trade, these are all good news. Stockpiling assets, having those assets continue to grow. I notice when I'm solo, I do a lot more hand motions. I don't do that when I'm with Matt. I guess it's because I'm talking to myself, but in a way. But I keep seeing my hand pop in the screen if you're watching on YouTube. If you're on audio, I just wasted about 15 seconds of your Monday morning. So I apologize for that. But Triantos becoming just more and more of a solid asset and increasing his trade value, increasing his value overall, all these prospects, it's really positive news for the Chicago Cubs. And I'm interested to see him and Canario and Alcantara. And of course, we know PCA and Owen Casey and Horton and all these major prospects that the Cubs have, who are going to be Cubs in the future and who are going to be, trade assets to get you superstars, right? Or stars or really good players. That's the question, and I'm excited to have it answered. I'd love for you guys to comment below on this Monday and tell me, what is your ideal Chicago Cubs offseason, or what constitutes a good offseason for you, right? Would you be disappointed if it was just Bellinger, Hoskins, and a pitcher, which would basically just be a regurgitation of last offseason? Bellinger gets the Swanson type contract. The next starting pitcher gets the Tyone type contract, and then Hoskins on the 1-year deal would be like Bellinger contract last year. Is that enough for you? It's probably not enough for me. I think with all the splashes they made, I want to see them get one of the big boys. And with all due respect to Cody Bellinger, he's not at that list, in my opinion, of, Yamamoto, Otani, Soto. The Alonso thing's interesting. If they did trade for Pete Alonso, you feel like it wouldn't be a great offseason if they didn't re-sign Bellinger. If that was their only big move, I don't know. It's interesting. It's really kind of a perspective thing. And I'd love to hear your guys' talk on that. Matt will be back on Tuesday. We'll break more of this stuff down. I'll ask him what his ideal offseason or what constitutes a good offseason for him, and we will keep it rolling. The offseason is young. It is fresh. We still have plenty of trades. Remember, I predicted that the Cubs are going to make a trade in November. We're about halfway through November. We'll see what happens. And then December, winter meetings, free agency, it's going to pop off pretty quickly here. So I hope everybody has their seatbelt on, and we hope that you continue to ride with us during this offseason, because it is going to be, in my opinion, my prediction, one we're all going to remember for a long time. Shout out to the everydayers who are with us all 5 episodes throughout the week, and you can become an everydayer by checking us out each and every weekday. Be sure to hit that subscribe button for Locked On Cubs on YouTube and smash the like button for the algorithm. We are also on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts and streaming on Sirius XM. I am Sam Olber, and this has been Locked On Cubs.